Hi everyone and welcome to this development update call where we will discuss the latest progress with Mintlayer. My name is Michael Bille and as always I'm here with our CTO Ben Marsh to take you through the latest development on Mintlayer. Hi Ben, how are you doing today?
I am very well, thank you. It's a nice sunny day, and this week's slightly calmer than last week was. So yeah, it's a good day. Good day for me. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good as well. Yeah, last week was super busy. We had the TGE and listing on Gate, so it was a lot of things going on internally as well. So yeah, busy week, but now we are looking forward to a new week. And yeah, again, I'm looking forward to hear more about the protocol development as well. So yeah, please let me know what's on the agenda today, Ben.
Yeah, so I mean, as per usual, we will go through the web and mobile teams as we always do so, and we will go through the core node work as well. So it's perhaps worth saying, but this month there's slightly less for us to talk about today because a lot of the effort has been on the TGE. So, particularly in the web and mobile teams, a lot of their work has been going towards the TGE stuff. So, with the launch site and the token and the DApp and all these things.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's not all that much to say when it comes to the sort of protocol development from those teams over the last month or so. I should say that there is some work going on at the moment, which was started a while ago and has been going on in the background and has become the focus now the TG is done, which I won't say exactly what it is, but will be announced very shortly. So this is something which is going to be coming out soon, and we will talk about in the very near future in a bit more detail. Well, I say a bit more detail. We will talk about, I suppose, is a better way to phrase it, considering I'm not really saying anything now. So yeah, that will be a point of interest in the very near future. And as per usual, there's been a little bit of work on the entropy stuff in both the mobile and wallet stuff. So there is some open pull requests to finish that work off now. But in reality, the majority of the effort for those teams has been on other things for the last month or so. Um, so yeah, development of the wallet and these sorts of things has been a bit slower than normal. So the core node team has been powering on though, so there has been lots going on there. So we have done quite a few things in the cryptography subsystem over the last month or so. So one of the most notable things is not being used at the moment, but will become important in the nearish future, which is we've added WASM for some of the crypto stuff, meaning we can essentially use exactly the same code that we use in the core node in the mobile and web wallets for Mintlayer in the future. So the way that signing a transaction works, key generation, all of these sorts of things, we will use exactly the same code. We won't just implement it in the same way. We will literally use the same code. So this allows us to export the Rust code we're using on the core node to the wallet code. So this is something we've been trying to work out if we should do for a while now, and we finally made the decision that, yeah, this is a sensible way for us to do this. So we did. So that was something that was merged only a few days ago, actually, but it's been a while sort of on the back burner, and we finally made the jump and went ahead and did it. We also last time briefly discussed multisig. So I think I was talking about the idea of us doing something, some sort of tree signature multisig. So this is still something we're working on. So this is essentially an open research project at the moment. So this is something that we are doing some maths on at the moment to prove that the idea works and that it's secure. And we will hopefully over the next couple of months have something here. But this is a very novel way of doing this. This is something that's not really done anywhere else. So this is not something that we're just going to merge immediately because we need to prove this idea out. So although this is our focus for how we want to do multisig, we have implemented something else in the interim. what we'll call classical multisigs, which is essentially the way this works elsewhere, which is not as exciting as what we're proposing. It's not as novel, not as interesting, but we know it works. The security model is very simple. There's nothing for us to worry about. So we've been able to implement multisig in a simple way so that we can continue doing the more fun research in the background and eventually get to something that's a bit more exciting. So yeah, as you could probably guess based on that, we have merged what we'll call classical multisig implementation. So we have multisig support in the core node now as well. Other than that, there has been some more work on the wallet, which I feel like I've been saying for a while now. We have merged the keychain stuff, so all the key handling that happens in the wallet, so key storage, things like this, has been merged. And we're continue on with the next parts of the wallet now. Other than that, we have been doing quite a lot of work in the P2P system, as usual, including some work adding SOX proxies and things like this. Other than that, the mempool is heading towards a state of stableness now. So it's been a long time since we started talking about the mempool. And realistically, there are two things going on in the mempool now. One is a bit of a code cleanup. So there is still a few small things that need to be done, but nothing major. And there's lots of code cleanup because we've got to the point where it's tested now. So all the tests are working. We've added all the tests we want to add. And yeah, we're just essentially fixing up the last few bits before we merge it. So we are more or less done with that. Unless something we decide to change the way we've done something, that is essentially done for the time being. As soon as the cleanup's done, that will be merged, and yeah, we will finally stop talking about it for the time being, at least. So I should say, so the mempool is, as I said, it's heading towards a state of stability now. So we will finish testing it, finish cleaning up the code, and we will merge it. I should say that probably won't be the end of the mempool stuff. So it will be for the time being. We've got other things that we will move on to and start working on. But we will come back and revisit the mempool in the future. So there are lots of things that we need to change in the mempool in the future as we start supporting different things in Mintlayer. So what we have now works for what we're going to release for the mainnet. But of course, Mintlayer isn't going to finish when we release the mainnet. That's the starting point. This is not going to be the final product. We have years and years of plans coming after that, where we're going to iterate features and make Mintlayer into something that is the best it possibly can be. So the mempool will have to change over time as we add some of these features, and it will have to change slightly. So it's likely that we will start talking about the mempool again in the future. But for the time being, we're heading towards a point where we can stop worrying about it too much. The proof of stake is still a big thing for us at the moment. So it's something that we're still working on heavily. And I know that we've been talking about this for a while now. But again, we're continuing on. There have been a few more pull requests merged over the last month. And in fact, we were briefly talking just before we joined this call about the fact that we're currently looking at doing the longest chain rule for our proof of stake consensus. So we're talking about chain density and things like this, because when you start looking at chain selection and longest chain rules and proof of stake, they become quite messy. So they differ to how this works in a proof of work chain, and there's slightly more to it. They're slightly more involved. So this is what we are currently working on. So we are trying to define exactly how we're going to do this. So we have a very good idea of what we're going to do, and we're just formalizing this at the moment. So we're just creating a formal model for what we want to do, and then we will implement it. But yeah, we are heading very rapidly towards the point where our proof of stake is done. We are more or less working on the last few bits at the moment. The sort of key parts are relatively mature now. So it's just in the process of more or less finishing that off over the next month or two. I would imagine the majority of that cleanup work will be done, and we will start testing it internally. But bits of it, I mean, obviously bits of it have already been tested. I'm not talking unit testing, I'm talking functional testing. So all of the constituent parts that we have already implemented are tested on that sort of unit level. So for example, the verifiable random function stuff is tested. We know that that works, but we need to test it in conjunction with everything else, because just like everything else in life, just because something works in isolation in its sort of perfect environment doesn't mean it will when everything else is thrown in together. So we have spoken quite a lot in the past about functional testing. We spoke about it for a long time with the mobile wallet, and I know I've also spoken about it in the core node as well. So we have this Python test framework in the core node that allows us to spin up nodes and get them talking together and interacting with one another. So we will add consensus tests to this essentially. So in the core repo, in the actual code base, we'll have these unit tests, which test the sort of individual functionality of the functions and the different constituent parts. And then in this functional test framework, we will have everything working together, and we will ensure that not only does the consensus all work together, but the consensus works together with everything else. Does it work together with the transactions? Does it work together with block production? Does it work together with the networking layer? And we will add everything together and essentially prove out that everything works exactly as it should do. So yeah, although we're heading towards a point of maturity with the code, that doesn't mean that will be the end of it, I should say. There will be a relatively lengthy testing period that comes afterwards. Because again, as we mentioned before, proving out this and making sure everything is as safe and secure as possible is our priority. This is the thing that we care about in the engineering team. So we will take our time, make sure everything is provable, everything is safe, everything is secure, everything is tested before we start releasing things to the public. So again, last time I think I was talking about us changing how we did our Merkle tree stuff in the core repo. So I can't remember if we had merged that code last time or not. I think it was around about the last call we merged that code. I can't remember if it was just before or just afterwards, but around about that time. We've refactored that now, and it's become its own crate. It may actually be moved outside of the core repo, so people can use it for other purposes in the future. So it'll become its own repo, and other people using not even just blockchain products, but anyone who needs multi-proof Merkle trees can use it, because there aren't all that many Rust implementations at the moment. I mean, the reason we implemented it is because we couldn't find someone doing what we wanted to do in Rust. We could find it in other languages, but there wasn't a Rust implementation of what we wanted. So the idea is that we moved it out into its own crate at the moment, and we will probably move it out again into its own repo so other people can use that code for other things. So there's been some refactoring on that level. I guess it's a mixture of cleaning up the code and secondly just trying to make life easier for other people who are going to rely on Mintlayer's code base. Because Mintlayer is an open source project. The idea is that people should be able to reuse the bits of the code that they want to use for other things. In the same way that occasionally we use other people's code. I mean, I say occasionally. We have lots of dependencies, open source dependencies, because there's no point us reinventing the wheel. Had there been a multi-proof Merkle tree library, we would have used it, but there wasn't, so we've gone ahead and done it ourselves. And the last thing there really is to talk about is kind of building on that sort of cleanup work that I just mentioned with the Merkle trees. We've upgraded the version of Rust we're using, so there are lots of small changes there to clean up the code. We've added some new linters and things like this. So there's been lots of small code cleanups throughout the repo. So you'll see like 5 or 6 pull requests over the last month, just doing small code cleanups to make the code more readable, more manageable, more maintainable in the long run. Because at some point, we're going to have to, we've already had other developers outside of Mintlayer contribute to the code base. But over time, this is going to become more and more common. So the more readable this code is to someone on the outside, the better. So at the moment, we're in a position where most people contributing to Mintlayer Core are still within the engineering team here. So if you don't understand something, it's relatively easy to turn to someone else and go, yeah, what does this do? I mean, you wrote it, so just tell me. But that doesn't really work when you're not part of that team. If you're outside, it's very difficult for you to do that. So one of the big things that we want is for this code to be as clean and readable as possible. So we want someone who, I mean, obviously it's not achievable for everyone to just show up and look at this code and understand it, because there are different degrees of ability, let's put it that way. But someone who is a good Rust developer who has a understanding of blockchain should be able to look at this code and understand exactly what we're doing and why straight away. This is our goal. So we do spend a lot of time cleaning up the code and trying to make it as nice as possible for other people as we go. So yeah, we do spend a lot of time on this. This is another reason that we are so over the top of our testing. So although the main reason is that we want everything to be as sort of explicitly tested as possible so it's safe and secure, the tests also provide a nice, obvious way of how the code links together. It's very easy to look at some tests and go, oh, okay, that does that, that does that, that's the result. Okay, I know how this links together. And so, I mean, for example, when I read code that I've never read before, this is how I start looking at code. I look at the test first, so I know what I'm expecting before I look at the actual code. So this is another reason we're very explicit with testing, is hopefully when more and more people start trying to onboard themselves into the Mintlayer code base, it will be easier for them to make that transition into understanding it. And yeah, realistically, that is what has been going on for the last month or so. So over the next period of time, next month or so, as I mentioned, we have something going on in the web and mobile teams, which is going to be announced relatively soon. So everyone in those teams is currently working on that and will be for the next couple of weeks or so, I would imagine, before we get back to the normal work back onto the wallets and these sorts of things. There's going to be a couple more weeks of other things. And the core node team are just going to be powering on with what they're currently doing. So, as I said, mempool, it's going to be mainly some cleanup work. There's going to be lots of proof of stake stuff. So some of it is going to be more research stuff, some of it implementation stuff, but lots and lots going on there. And for wallet, going to be a new pull request in the wallet team, coming very shortly, either the end of this week or early into next week. And that should provide a lot more of the functionality that's currently missing from the wallet. And we're going to be, sort of heading towards having a working version of that in the very, very near future. And there's going to be lots and lots of testing work on the core node team. So one of the things we're starting to look at now is fuzzing the core node. So we kind of, we don't really fuzz it at the moment. So one thing we do is a lot of our tests, we specifically use random numbers where we keep the seed in case something goes wrong. And it allows us to sort of half fuzz things as we're going. So we have our defined test. So let's say we're serializing something. We will have chosen text serialization and deserialization tests to ensure that it does what it's meant to do. Can I take A, convert it back, and get A out the other side? But something else we do a lot of is doing this randomly in our tests. So that every time the tests are run, we do something completely different. The idea being, over time, we will get a larger and larger amount of these things for whatever it might be, whichever test we're looking at, to actually be tested. But we're heading towards the point where we are looking at more formally fuzzing the code base. So this is something that we've been talking about for a while, but haven't actually done yet. But this is something we may start to work on over the next month or so. This is actually also something that if people are starting to want to get involved in Mintlayer, is perhaps a nice place to look as something to do, because it's something that we have an idea of how we want to go about it, but we have slightly more important things to do at the moment. But as some of the bigger tasks like the mempool start to finish, we may start to look to do. I should also say there are still lots of things, smaller things in the Mintlayer codebase that need to be done. I mean, if you search for to do in the Mintlayer codebase, you'll find lots of things that we want to do and just haven't had chance to do yet. And there are also some open issues on GitHub. So if people do want to start getting involved with the core node, then there are some relatively easy places to start. So when I say easy, what I mean is well-defined, not necessarily easy in the sense that it's going to be trivial to do, but at least there are well-defined places to start.
This is a good place to promote the grants we have for the open source developers, just to go in on GitHub and work on the things that need to be worked on, and there they can have a grant from Mintlayer itself. So yeah, to help you guys out as well.
Yeah. This is the way we want to move forward in the future. So the more people we have starting to contribute to the code base, the better. I mean, there's a famous way of looking at software, which is essentially the more eyes there are, the shallower bugs are. And there's not really such a thing as a bug-free piece of software. It's kind of it's not something that exists. So the more people we start to have looking at Mintlayer, the quicker those bugs and issues will be found. And yeah, we can start to have input from other people. Other people might have different ways of doing things that we haven't thought about, and some of it's just a case of we know what needs to be done, but we haven't got around to doing it yet. So have a look through the code. There are to-dos there, defining things to be done. There are open issues on GitHub. And if people have questions about those specific things, just get in touch with us and we can help explain exactly what is needed, because some of those comments might make slightly more sense to us than they do to someone on the outside who doesn't understand exactly how all the code links together and all of these sorts of things. So it might be the case that people need a little bit of hand-holding, so to speak, in order to get started. But yeah, we have the ability to help people do this. So we have helped people contribute to the Mintlayer codebase before. So there was a chap who helped us and fixed an open issue a while ago, and yeah, we helped him through it to make sure that it was what we needed. And yeah, we're happy to do this with other people as well. But the more people who start to get involved, the better.
Sounds good, Ben. I totally agree, especially like with coding and open source projects, just like get as many people involved as possible. So that's absolutely amazing. And people should take a look at the GitHub and see how everything is coding. But yeah, thank you so much for the update, Ben. Do you have anything you want to add before we're closing it down?
No, I don't think so. I think that's it from me this week. So yeah, that's
sounds good. So mempool and proof of stakes is almost getting there, and and some exciting announcement coming up very soon as well from you guys. So
yep,
yeah, it's kind of a cliffhanger for us to wait for that announcement.
yeah.
All right, well, that's all we got for you guys today, and thank you to all who joined us. And please remember to join our Telegram, Twitter, and Discord channels. And remember, we are still looking for new team members to join us, so please visit our website for the open positions. And yes, we are in progress of the next exchange listing, so please keep an eye on the announcements in the future as well. And yeah, that's all for today. Ben, thank you so much for joining.
There is all. Thank you for having me.
And guys, thank you very much for joining the development update call, and I will see you all next time. Thank you.